All right, guys, let's talk numbers for a quick minute. So if there's a 50,000 a month keyword, which is not that big of a keyword, right? It might be something like sell domains or something like that, or some kind of medium, not a long tail, but like kind of like a medium volume keyword. You sell 20,000 units or 50,000 units or 100,000 units from a keyword like that. Because if you do the math, if it's 50,000 a month, then that would mean like you're upwards of 600,000 searches a year. So you absolutely can sell 50 to 100,000 units. Now, if you have OTOs, if you have upsells, the concept of like, hey, if your front end is $50 or $97, and you have an upsell, so the 97 would get you software, and then the first upsell would be like a done for you package or whatnot. And a lot of that done for you money will have to be paid out to people who are helping you deliver that DFY. But it's an OTO, and I would say just as long as you can retain 20 or 30% of that OTO, it's profit. And then why I say 20 or 30% is if an affiliate gets 50% from it, then the cost is like another 20 or something percent from that. Like, so if it was $1,000, then you would be paying $200, right? I think mine is upwards of like 300 or something. Okay, so if that makes sense, I'm selling for 900 and it's 300. So it leaves the company with 600. And then with an affiliate, I do 30% rather than 50%. And a lot of the time they're like, why the heck is that? That's the one annoying thing, is that everyone's so used to 50%. But it's usually their shit is crap. So it's like, if I'm actually doing something and it's actually good like that, and like a lot of affiliates would be like, that's crazy how you spend that much money on every customer or whatever, but we keep our merchant accounts, we keep good, clean numbers and rates and all that stuff, you know, and it's really a good overall message, good lesson. So remember, you have that search term and you're targeting, your sales page has been built all upon that 50,000 a month keyword. Remember, 600,000 searches a year, right? And so therefore you should have a goal of like 50 to 100,000 units. Now this year we're up to, with that one company, it's like 700,000, so that would be like 70,000 a month or something with that company, just at the beginning, you know, just starting out with it, and 1,600 customers. So you would be looking at it like, I think the front end is 47, and then after the 47, there's OTOs in the funnel that make the average around $100. And this is something you've probably seen on ClickBank. So if you have $20 front end sale, and then, or a $30 front end sale, whatever it is, that's pretty established. Then you have a funnel where the potential of each customer could pay up to $700 or $800 on softwares and on database and on resources. A lot of the time it's not information that we're selling. The information already came free, which is a very big misconception in the industry. And so when somebody comes through the entire funnel, some people only spend 47, some people spend 800. So it averages out around $100. And that's why a lot of the time you'll see on ClickBank, you'll see average a sale, or on Warrior Plus, average a sale $43 or something like that. And that's usually from like a $10 product or a $15 product. So you can see why it says $43. That average is because of the OTOs. Now in ClickBank, things are a little bit higher, like for digital products, for instance. And so think about it like that. A lot of the time, that's how things are going on the front end. And then you have this $100 average, right? So if you have a more beefier product or a software product and it's more professional product, then it's selling itself for, we have one, $97. Our software is $97 straight up. And then there's one OTO and that's it. And the OTO is for $500 and that just boosts it. It's pretty much like $200 average or something like that. So, you know, look at the 1,600, you minus the affiliates, they take 50%, and a lot of it is affiliate driven. And if we're doing paid ads, it's still probably going to be the same. It's probably going to be about 30% to the paid ads and then 20% to the expenses or whatnot. So that explains like kind of like the background. So, you know, in our minds, when we launch a digital product or a software or a service or whatever it is, then you're looking at it like as if 1,000 units at $100, you're going to be looking at $100,000, obviously. So to get to $1 million, you'd have to do 10,000 units. There you go. So now you're going to multiply how many millions of dollars do you want to make? So every $10,000 at that $100 average will add another $1 million. So then you're going to look at it in the perspective of how much time is it going to take you to do this. Now, if you were like thinking to yourself, I'm going to do a launch and I'm going to sell 10,000 units in 1 week, and I've done that a couple times. That's why, when we say, hey, we did this $1 million launch or $1.5 million launch or something like that. Now, the reason why it slows down, I've been in situations where I shut it down after a week because that's what I was promising to folks. And I had managers saying, why did you shut it down? You should have just raised the price a little and kept going. And I was like, yeah, but this is an actual service. Like, for instance, if I was to sell a service where it was like, hey, we're going to build your website for you or something, we've done that too for $9.97. And there was no OTOs. There was actually like a $500 option, which was 2 sites. And then for the 1,000, you get 10 sites. And so that was a very successful launch. It did really well. And it could have kept going. What we were seeing was about 300 sales a day. So most of them were obviously getting the $9.97 because it was a much better deal than the 500. But for the people who actually didn't have $9.97, they would purchase the 500 and only get 2. At the end of the week, it averaged out, it was probably exactly $1 million, or like $1.1 million. And that was in 1 week, and it was about 200 to 300,000 a day for like about 1 week. And so if we had kept that going, if you've watched my other videos, you'd know that 300,000 or around 260 something thousand a day ends up being 100 million a year. So if you do the math, you can think to yourself, you've got hours, days, weeks, months, year. You map this out and you can almost do it algebraically, like where you're thinking about the end result first, like I want to make $100 million. You have to know how to break that down. What's your price point? And you can do this first. Of course, you're not going to go an entire year at 300,000 a day if your product is crap. If you're smart enough to put that together, you're probably smart enough to know that look into the future, unless you have no creative brain at all and you're a total absolute psycho with no empathy, you will not be able to continue doing that. Like your processor would shut you down, etc. So that's assumed. But let's go back to the numbers, right? So if you wanted to do 100 million a year, for instance, right? And I've heard of someone through the grapevine, I don't know if it was true, but I've heard $1 billion. I heard one guy did $1 billion in BizOp in 1 year, but I know a few people who've done 300 million over time. Like I think that was in 5 years. I know the guy personally. He just last year did 100 million and he had celebrity offers. So what he was doing was acting as an agency for celebrities, and the celebrities would post on their Instagram. And then the product was like, a lot of the time it was a personal development product. You have a celebrity who's gone through a lot of crap, and they're like, well, I want to tell you my story. Oh my God, boom, right? And they've got 50 million followers, etc. So you look at it that way too, the conversion rate from 50 million, what, 2, 5, 10%? Think about those numbers. And then with the averages I was telling you about, like if it was 40 and then the 100 or whatnot, right? And a lot of the time, like you've seen with Andrew Tate's, Real World is $50 a month, and then the War Room is $5,000, right? And I think they actually published their numbers, and you could see that all that money is basically from the $50 a month. And then the War Room wasn't as much. It wasn't like, oh, they're making all their money from this $5,000 War Room upsell. I would say that's a great way to do it. When you look at the amount of money that you want to make, it's not really what you want to make, but it's what the industry will allow you to do. I've seen, for instance, when we launched the football coaching program with Steve Christie, I saw literally the highest conversion rates I've ever seen. And it was because it was so niche orientated. It was American youth football coaches. And so the buyers were coaches, right? Sure, probably some moms and football moms, etc. bought the course, but it was mainly every coach in America pretty much bought this course, because when you're operating in a niche like that, it's going to pop up all over the place because there's no competition. If there's no competition, you're number one whenever a youth football coach goes on there. And we were selling that like freaking crazy for $50. I think there was only one OTO for that, and it was a weekly webinar with Steve Christie, and he would draw out the plays. So it was a really great product, and everyone freaking loved the product. And although it didn't make millions of dollars because it didn't really have the search terms, I mean, maybe the search terms were more of like 5,000 or 10,000 or something like that. And it did maybe around 50,000 bucks. When you're looking at 50 and then $100 OTO, maybe an average of $70 or $80, it brought that 50 a little bit higher. And then the end result was 80, 80, 80, 80 as an average because some people would only get the 50 and some people would get the 100. The OTO conversion was very high as well, but then you end up with that type of situation, 50,000, divide that, right? So if you have $80, how many times did $80 fit into 50,000, right? Well, 80 goes into 1,000 like 12 times or something, right? So then 12 times 50 is, you see what I'm saying? That's pretty freaking accurate, you know? So let's look at it like this. How do these guys do 100 million? Well, that's what that is really it's 300,000 a day. Or in the case of my friend who was doing this celebrity agency, it probably wasn't a constant 300 grand a day. A lot of it was in one day, and this is how it goes a lot of the time, when that celebrity makes the post, it was probably 20 mil. Similar to how Kanye did that commercial, and he was like, hey everyone, go to my website. Remember you saw that on the Super Bowl, and he was in the back of his dark car and everything. He did 17 million, I think, and the product was $20 or $40. Like, it was shoes. You see what I'm saying? So when you look at the shot of all of the people who purchased it, it was a few 100,000 people or something, and that's how you get 200, 300,000 people purchasing $20 to $30 products. You do the math, you see what I'm saying? So look at it that way, and then with the search volume. So you've got your search volume, you've got the price, and think about it like time. There's all these different models, and there's all these different prices. Like, for instance, what if you were to go straight up business to business, like Alex Hormozi style? And if you ever listen to him talk about his story, was gym owners were demanding, they were like, Alex, I'll pay you anything you want. Just give me that recipe of how you did these gym launches. And he was like, dude, I don't know how much it would be worth. And according to him, they were like, dude, I'll give you $5K for it. And he was like, really? All right. He was like down and out at that moment. You know, the gym launches fell apart for him. But all the gym owners saw that, and they wanted that. And so he was like, all right, I'll give it to you for 5,000, cool. And then it went up to like 8,000, 10,000, and so that's a business to business price point, right? So if it's like not only information, but like a blueprint and like mapped out, and it's that situation, a lot of the time with business to business, like if you have a model like that, that's a great lesson to everyone. And you'll find this when you're selling domains. Like if you go on Flippa, those are all pretty much business to business people on there. It's a business to business relationship. And you're gonna get paid a lot more for business to business. It's not business to consumer. In business to business, it's almost like, hey guys, you can make an announcement on your Facebook. You'd be like, I did $1 million launch. Who wants the blueprint? And it can be a price point like that, where it is totally righteous, 2,000, 3,000, 4,000, etc. Services are where you can have higher price points, and in B2B you can have higher price points. But in business to consumer, which is a lot of the time, like if you're selling a BizOp, or if you're selling like Get Your Ex Back or Six Pack Abs or something like that, it has to be comparable to the books that you can get on Amazon when you're talking price point. But just remember that it's so important to kind of memorize those types of numbers. Like, you know, 20,000 a week is $1 million a year. 200,000 a week is 10 million a year. So memorize those numbers, and then further from there, understand how those numbers are happening. A lot of the time people think someone gave him 1.5 million. No, it was like 4,000 customers paying $1,000. Here's another thing, is I learned that from that launch I did, where it's like 1,000 times 1,000 is $1 million. So look at it that way too, which I was explaining. You've done 10,000 units at 1,000, you've got 10 million. You do 20,000 units at 1,000, you've got 20 million. You do 100,000 units, you have 100 million. You see what I'm saying? At $1,000. So if it was 100, then you just divide it by 10, you know what I mean? Like, it's not 100 million, it's 10 million. You see what I'm saying? So this is good perspective, you know what I mean? And think about it, like, you can really achieve anything. You think to yourself, with time, you need a few $1 million to retire. How are you gonna do it? Are you gonna do it with one brand, or are you gonna scale it? Or are you gonna have, for instance, when I started, I didn't know how to do it horizontally. I had sites that were doing $200 or $300 a day. And so at $200 to $300 a day, you're at like 100,000 per site, per asset. I didn't think that one site could do 10 times as much. For instance, $1 million a year at 3,000 a day, 20,000 a week, etc. I didn't know that existed. I didn't even know what OTOs or upsells were. So it was funny. I was like, all right, I did hip hop beats. Now I'm gonna do relaxing beats. And then now I'm going to do kids beats. Now I'm going to do stock beats. Now I'm going to do all these. And I kept reinventing that same model while they were running autopilot instead of, duh, I didn't know this. I didn't have a mentor. So, I mean, what I could have done is taken hip hop beats, added OTOs, added email marketing, and then gone out and actively recruited the right affiliates, gone on radio stations, etc. But I was always so important about not risking money, not gambling money, like not taking a chance, and more of like doing the work, recruiting some affiliates, like sending an email to someone who run a hip hop clothing store or something like that. And then I think that's maxed. I'm gonna go on to the next one. It's not for everyone. Like I think someone on my TikTok was talking about the $300 a day, and he said, yeah, but I'm gonna have to do 9,000 sites to get to 1 billion. I was like, all right, the dude wants to get to 1 billion. So if you want to get to 1 billion, I would recommend start a landscaping business where the mowers are actually drones that you send out from one central location. To make 1 billion, you really have to be an innovator. And I can't speak from experience. I've never made $1 billion. I probably would still be making videos like this if I had $1 billion. I would be bored as hell. When you make money, I remember when I was only doing like 100,000 a year or something, you know, online. Remember my first year was like 200,000. Immediately, there's this void, like I can't hang out with my old friends. Like it wasn't working. They were so upset with me. Like it was just so weird. Like they're so jealous. So I started making videos like this, and then everyone was cool. And they were like, all right, I get it. All right. So, and they were like, thank you. And then that's how I got into the guru thing, was I was like, look, I got to teach these peoples. You know what I'm saying? Like, cause they come to my house and they be acting a horror movie. You know what I mean? So, but yeah, that's like a really great way to look at it. You need to do the numbers and think about it from the ground up like that. All right. So I hope you dig this video and understand a little bit of the numbers and stuff. I want to do more numbers, but I really have to go to the bathroom. So I'll see you guys in a bit. All right. Love you.